On today's show, the Dallas Mavericks season comes to an end. How will we remember this season? It was an incredibly successful one, but Luka Doncic, Jalen Brunson all take the next step forward. And now we get to talk about what they do next. Talk about all that and more on today's
Let It Ride, Nick, let it ride!
Locked on Mavs. Let's go!
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked on Mavericks podcast.
Hey, Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. He hits! Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Let it ride. Let it ride for the season. An incredible, successful season for the Dallas Mavericks. It may be a sad day for some as the Mavericks season comes to an end, but we're going to let it ride today. Let it ride. We all need some better vibes in our life. And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where the best way to help us grow the show is to comment anything below. How will you remember this Mavericks season? What is your favorite part of this season? What's a memorable thing for the playoff run or this season? Let us know in the comments below. And joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, and contributor at Mavs.com, the grind guy, the one more thing king. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Oh, man. It's super sad. See this thing end. It's over. But, I just said this to Nick right before we hit record. I haven't seen a vibe around a team like this after a loss, after a series ends that, they were in the moment, that they were sad. Just like I think I think the whole organization, fan base, and team, and you don't see this very often, was kind of like on the same page for the most part of,
They were.
hey, we're sad. We hate to see this end. But to see the collective appreciation for this season and to see the appreciation for that this team took a step. Like Luka Doncic said, hey, I think we took a big step, maybe even a couple of steps, this year to move past that first round, to go to a conference finals, to win 52 games. It sucks tonight. We'll talk about the game and stuff and what unfolded. But on the grand scheme of things, what a successful, fun season for the Dallas Mavericks.
Absolutely. And I think this Mavericks team, and you texted it to me. You said, listening to some of their comments afterwards, listening to Dinwiddie, listening to Jason Kidd, listening to Brunson, and then Dorian, and even Luka, like this team, maybe not so much in the moment sometimes, in the heat of the moment during games and stuff, but this team had such incredible perspective and like self-awareness and all that. Yeah. Just knowing, okay, we know who we are, we know what we're going to be, we know what our roles are, we know who we can possibly be, we know what we can be. Somebody asked Luka after the game, what did you learn about this team during this run? And he said, nothing. I didn't learn anything. I didn't learn anything about this team because I knew what we were capable of. I knew what this team could do. And it's almost like the Mavericks ran up against this Warriors team that had everything come together for them at the right time. Everybody on that team is playing at their highest level of the season right now, which is, hats off to that team. They did an incredible job. They're, incredibly well put together and coached, and the stars and everything just, it's all coming up roses for them. If they don't win the finals, then it's a huge, huge mismatch or huge disappointment, I think, because they're playing so well. But the Mavericks ran up against that. And I think they realized that at a certain point. And they're like, we can try all the stuff that we want. We'll try our butts off. We'll fight during that third quarter. We'll try to come back and make a comeback and, get a 20-something point lead down to 8, and we'll get it close. But it's just going to come up empty for us because they're a better team at this point. And it was incredible to hear the perspective from that Mavericks team. And I've enjoyed watching this Mavericks team so much this year.
Oh, they're so much fun. I mean, Theo Pinson, obviously he's not supposed to talk to the media post game.
You said it like he's not allowed.
Well, as far as like he didn't play in the game or anything, and Kidd finishes his post game presser, and then Theo hops down. Is like, all right, give me a question, and just like playing around. Somebody starts asking a question on Zoom, and Tim Hardaway steps in. Is like, get off the stage, come on. But Theo like throws out a line of like, I've never had so much fun around a team like this. Like he'll never forget this. And
nobody had more fun than us.
Yeah, and it's like I think you just hear that echoed throughout the team. Spencer Dinwiddie had a great quote about team chemistry. And this is coming from a guy who's seen great team chemistry in his Brooklyn days, and he's seen not great team chemistry in some other days of his career. And to say this, he said, man, our team chemistry is second to none on this team. And they just love being together. You see, Dodo upset about losing the game, but also making a joke about Brunson. He's like, he's about to get paid. It was just it's everybody had a perspective that was realistic after the game of, hey, we're bummed, but man, what a fun ride. And it was a fun ride for us to cover this team all year. And I mean, heck yes, I was trying to look at how many pods we've done since the postseason started. And
I don't know.
I think
we've gone every single day except for the one day we traveled back.
Yeah. So since
the playoffs, since before the playoffs started, we've done every single day.
Yeah, so I think we're pushing 50. We're in the mid 40s right now. This is 45, 46.
What's more, Reggie Bullock made threes in the playoffs or Locked On Mavericks podcast in the playoffs?
But yeah, I know a lot of you guys reached out after the game last night and just said, hey, from DMs to tweets and stuff. It's been such a fun ride listening to the pod this playoffs. And obviously we got to travel to the Bay and covered 2 games in the conference finals, something we'll never forget. And obviously we always say this, our pod never stops.
Yeah, we're not stopping here. Nope. We're like Luka. Luka looked at his schedule and said, well, I just looked at my schedule and it's not got a lot of time for time off. Same for us.
Yeah. Luka's I got a week off and then I'm back playing basketball.
I want to take a minute right in the middle of this first segment and just thank everybody. We have had such incredible numbers. The people that have joined us, we met so many people during this playoff run and during the season. And it was my first season back. I had to go live in Florida for a couple of years, just some family situations with myself and my wife. And because of this pod, for the most part, I was able to move back. I was able to be back and go to every game, go to all the playoff games. I went to so many playoff games. I had never been to an NBA playoff game in my life before. It's just been an incredible run to meet so many of you, to run into you in the last Mavs home game, game 4. I ran into this guy that I'd met before, and his mom was with him. And as they were leaving, she said, hey, he doesn't get impressed by people very often. So it was really cool to get to meet you. And it was great. I'm meeting people's moms now. It's just
kissing babies. And
we were the #1 show on the network in April. I think we're going to be there in May too. It's not over yet, but we're definitely going to be the #1 show on the network in May as the numbers have gone right now. And it's all because of you guys. And like Isaac said, we don't stop. We continue 5 days a week all through the offseason. We've done this the last 2 or 3 years. We've done that. We'll continue through the draft, free agency, all that stuff. And I just want to thank you, the Raccoon Squad that joins us 5 days a week. Thank you to everybody. You all make this possible, and our lives have been completely changed for the better because of it. And it's been an incredible ride this year.
I was just talking to somebody a few days ago and they said, hey, how did you start doing this podcasting stuff that you do every night? And I'm like,
some crazy person called him one day.
Yeah. Let me tell you about this story. But honestly, I go back to the same thing. I was walking out of a John Legend concert with my wife, and you gave me a call, and we'd done one pod together.
I said, all of me wants all of you to do a daily Dallas Mavericks.
I remember us driving home that night, and I tell my wife, and I was like, you know what? I'm trying to talk her into it. I'm like, it's just 20-30 minutes a night. I know it's every night, but I'm a night owl. I'm going to watch the games anyway.
This is pre-kids for you too.
Pre-kids, pre-everything. And I'm like, I'll get paid just a little bit. It just, it'll cover maybe our electric bill or something. I don't even know that. And now we're 5 years into the sucker, and literally, this pod has helped us buy a house.
Both of us, yeah.
Just since the playoffs started, just our YouTube channel, over 1 million views on our YouTube channel over the past month of just, and I say that just because where we started and just seeing, some of these numbers and how many people are downloading, just trying to get our name out there. And so many of you guys have shared this pod, whether it's social media or with friends, and have DM'd us from literally around the world.
Yeah.
Literally around the world that have started listening to this pod. And
Slovenia and Germany and Latvia and Australia and literal bunkers in the Middle East, people have DM'd us from.
Yeah.
And said that they were listening to our show it's just been incredible. The
people serving in the military that have reached out to us, that have listened to our show. And it's just cool to see how our show has grown, year after year, like significantly every single year, our show has gotten bigger and bigger. And the amount of people, even in media and in organization, that just listen and stuff. So we can't thank you enough for that. Literally, it's helped literally change our lives,
for sure.
in our families' lives, and it's a fun thing to cover the Mavs. So, and one last thank you to Luka Doncic, because you've helped make us a lot of money. So,
hold on, wait. Because of that, we get.
Luka Doncic.
Coming up next, we'll tell you how the Mavs lost.
Coming up, let's actually talk about these Dallas Mavericks that we've been talking about for literal years on this podcast. And how did the Mavericks lose this game? What was the fight we saw in the third quarter? What was that? What can they build upon? Mark Cuban even talked about Jalen Brunson. Is he coming back next year? We'll talk about all that and more coming up. But before we do, where would we be without our listeners, without you, the listener, but also where would we be without Built Bar?
We didn't even thank Built Bar.
Where would we be without Built Bar? They're incredible. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. This is a wrapper of one I ate earlier. And just to show you guys that this is not like the same wrapper I'm using over and over again, this is one I ate last night, and this is one I ate today. The Built Bar Puffs are incredible. The Brownie Batter Puffs are literally my favorite candy bar. I'm not even joking with that. It's an incredible bar. I love it so much. Now they have granola bars you can check out. They have all kinds of different things. And you can get 15% off with our promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED, and then the number 1, the number 5, LOCKED15. The brownie batter is 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, 7 grams of sugar. Absolutely delicious. They help make this show possible. We thank them so much. And you guys can help continue it by using that promo code and getting some Built Bars. It'll help you. It's a great meal replacement. One of our hosts on our show, I think our Locked On Boston College show host, or Utah, one of the college hosts, lost like over 40 pounds just because he replaced some of the things he was eating with Built Bars. Incredible story. So go check them out. Built.com, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your entire order at Built.com. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. That's what makes you a Raccoon Squad member, making us your first listen every day. Now make sure to check out the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. Rafael Barlow from DFW and Richard Stamen, a.k.a. Mavs Draft on Twitter, plus Sam Ferris, Leaf Tulane, are giving you guys an in-depth look at the NBA draft, mock drafts, player rankings, and of course, big boards all the time. And available wherever you get your podcast. That's Locked On NBA Big Board. All right, Isaac Harris. Dallas Mavericks did actually play a game. Now, we just talked about how like the season's over and talking about how great the season was and everything, but the Mavericks lose 120 to 110, and the second quarter was just...
There's a mosquito in my house.
I was going to say, what are you looking for over there?
Something is biting me.
It's your child. It's like one of your kids it's just biting your ankles. The second quarter was brutal, and the first half just looked like... it just looked like this Mavericks team was going to go out in terrible fashion. You had Reggie Miller just like praising everything the Warriors are doing. And
you listened to Reggie.
Oh,
I listened on mute for...
I had to mute. It's maybe one of the reasons why I'm glad the season is over. It's no more listening to Reggie Miller, but just everything was going right for the Warriors in that second quarter. The defense from Luka and others was just brutal. The shot making from the Warriors was incredible. In the first half, the Warriors shot 56% from the field, 47% from three, and literally 100%, 12 of 12 from the free throw line. Only 4 turnovers for the Warriors. That's their key right there. If they can keep the ball and don't turn it over, then it's going well for them. Like they were literally doing everything right for them to win games. 20 assists on 24 made shots for the Warriors. It was just a clinic from that Warriors team. Everything was going right for them, and it looked terrible. But that third quarter showed me something a little bit more about this Mavericks team. You think, I kind of thought what Luka thought. Well, I'm not going to learn anything about this Mavericks team in this last game, but dang it, did they fight every single time that they were out on the court? Like, they were overmatched sometimes, and yeah, their shooting took them out of games, and yeah, they stopped, competing at the highest level on defense sometimes because they're shooting, but they fought. They fought in every series. They fought in every game, at least at some point during it, and it was just incredible to watch them in that third quarter.
Yeah, they kind of turned it around there in the third, just like they did last game. It's like, hey, they had a good third quarter. They came out, the first half, not Luka's greatest half. Okay, so we all know that. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that.
Just go look at Twitter over that period of time where just every person that's ever watched the NBA was just like piling on Luka. Like, I think it's been said enough that he didn't play good defense. He's not in the best shape and all that.
Yeah, and I tweeted out we got in trouble by Mavs fans, after that game 2 of the Suns series, and saying that, hey, like, this is a game Luka needs to look at and learn and get better from, and say, man, I got kind of embarrassed out there in that game 2 of the Suns. I would add the first half, really this game, to that rewatch. I would put those 2 games together on a single file, and
he admitted it. He admitted afterwards that I played terrible.
Yeah, and Tim McMahon, was kind of alluding to seeing what Luka thought about it. And when he asked Luka, he's like, "Hey, what's that next step? Like, what's the next step for you to kind of get to that next level?" And Luka said defense. He's like, "But I thought it was really cool that Luka, and we'll agree with Luka on this, is saying he's like, I thought I took a step defensively this year. Yes. He did. He got better. This was his best defensive year as a whole. But just like Luka said." He's like, I have to get better defensively, though. Like that, I just have to. And that is the next step for him. That's the next step for the team. I look at a quote Jason Kidd said post-game, his first kind of answer, and I'm like, all right, we can just put Luka's name to this right now. But he says about this offseason, Jason Kidd says, now it's about what is our appetite come next season. Are we going to tiptoe into the season, or are we going to be hungry? And then are we going to train this summer to understand, I'm getting choked up, to understand what it means to play in May and June, because it's a long season. And shout out to Luka in that quote, because I think it is. I think it's a learning moment for the team. It's a learning moment for Luka that, hey, like, to play into late June, it's May 27th right now. To play into late May, to play in early June, you got to be in incredible shape. And I think this is it's a learning moment for Luka.
Nick, that's a good question.
I was making sure the drops. I was trying to play Good Morning Isaac, but it didn't work for some reason. Yeah, and that Warriors team knows what it's like. They know how to get there, and they haven't been the last 2 years, and they were hungry. And that team is in incredible physical condition. Like, I think, who was it that said during this playoff run, Curry is the best conditioned athlete in the NBA? That's probably true, right? Like, the way he held up defensively, the way that he was able to play just that runaround style that he does on offense. Like, this Mavericks team got an up and personal close look at what it takes. And then they have like Andrew Wiggins, who's like one of the best athletes in the NBA, just, from birth, like as their fifth best player on their team, that they can just throw out there. So it was an incredible look for this Mavericks team to be able to see, okay, that's what it takes to go win a title, is to do what Curry and Clay and Draymond and now what Wiggins is doing over there. And that Warriors team is probably going to go win the title. And yeah, so that's where we are. But I like Luka admitted it's back to this Mavs being self-aware. Luka admitted it. I played terrible defense. I took a step forward on defense this year, but defense has got to be way better for me. That was Luka's quote after the game.
Yeah, I mean, and that's next level for him. I mean, but you look at that first half, and he struggled. Everybody loved the power line. Everybody out there, all the media and fans, they're just waiting for a bad Luka playoff game. They're like, this is my chance. Let me pounce on this moment right now. And, it was all happening. And I was like, all right, well, some of it's kind of deserved. He was getting, torched a little
he was bad
on defense. It wasn't just him missing shots, but then he comes out into the third. It looks like he's up a next notch a little bit as far as just the effort. Obviously, it was getting into his head some that he wasn't getting the foul calls that he should have. Like, he was getting fouled when he's getting into the paint. Right. They weren't calling it. But I'm sorry, but 6 to 8 more free throws isn't changing the, Warriors shooting 52% from the field and being up by, a million points. So it can be both and in that point. But the third quarter was a lot of fight. I thought one of the chess moves that Steve Kerr had in the whole game, but early on in the game, as soon as it happened, I texted you and I was like,
yeah, you did.
He's baiting him right now. He put Bielitsa in this game. And what did it do? Instantly, Luka and anybody out there is like, ooh, mismatch. Let me just completely stop the offense, seek out the mismatch, and try to go at him. He held his ground defensively, but more important, it threw off the whole offense. And Bielitsa, how many minutes he ended up playing this game? 21 minutes.
it was like 20
and even in the fourth quarter and some in that second half, I was like, Steve Kerr, you sly dog, you. Because it threw him off. They wanted to try to attack him.
And they did. Everybody was calling for it. Brunson, Luka, Dinwiddie at times were all calling for it. And the thing that Bielitsa does so well is like he's kind of methodical defensively. Not fast, not quick feet, just kind of stays there, but he doesn't take a ton of big chances, stays in front of them, and that's all the Mavericks need, or that's all the Warriors needed, because their team defense is really good. Their team defense in this has been really good. You saw at times Brunson would get the mismatch on Bielitsa. He's right down the middle of the court, and then all of a sudden he tries to drive at Bielitsa. Even if he gets a step in front of him or gets a little bit past him, all of a sudden you look at the paint and there's 4 Warriors just at the paint, blocking off passing lanes, blocking off his like drive to the rim and all that. It's just they were so interconnected, and that's the type of team defense you have to play to get to this level. And the Mavs played it at some points, but didn't play it enough in this playoffs. And there's a bunch of reasons why. There's a bunch of things that they can focus on in the offseason to get better personnel-wise, but they have a good core to start building on from that. Coming up, let's talk about how you're going to remember this season and this series and the playoff run. Let's talk about some good things that happened, and then we'll talk a little bit more about this game too, because there was some other good things that happened with the Mavericks. So we'll talk about that coming up. All right, Isaac Harris. We talked about the struggles in the first half. Talked about Luka Doncic, the third quarter that he had. Just the fight that this Mavericks team showed in that third quarter. Luka played all 12 minutes in that third quarter, 15 points. He had a couple of assists. He hit two of those threes, only had 1 turnover. And he ended up then playing a lot of the fourth quarter too and starting that fourth quarter, which is just like, all right, this is the end of the season right here. We're just going to go all out. Spencer Dinwiddie also deserves a lot of credit for this game.
Wow.
He's another player that came out and fight and almost led the Mavericks in scoring. 26 points. He had 4 assists, 4 fouls, and he didn't think he committed any of them. He had 2 blocked shots too, which is like a wild stat for Spencer Dinwiddie. 5 threes he made in this game. He had Steve Kerr on the sidelines saying, don't get too discouraged with their miracle threes that they're throwing up there. He said that in a timeout right after Dinwiddie hit like those 2 wild threes in the first half. But Spencer Dinwiddie showed up in this game, and it was just great to see him in a must-win game to show up in a big way.
Super encouraging. Like you said, he hit 5 threes in this game. He shot 9 free throws. He attacked the paint. I mean, He literally did so much tonight. To say, like, man, Spencer Dinwiddie showed up for an elimination game. And I mean, that's huge. It's huge for him going into the offseason and you trying to figure out, like, hey, what do we have, coming out of that trade, going into next season? What can he build upon? To see him perform on that type of stage, Western Conference Finals, he puts up 26 off the bench, hits 5 threes. I loved almost everything that I saw from him tonight.
And afterwards, another like really good perspective from him was talking about how a year ago in May, he was just starting basketball activities again. Like he was just starting. He said 4 months before this in May last year, I was 4 months removed from my surgery, and I was just coming back from basketball activities, and they all say that the first year coming back from that ACL injury is the hardest. And he just went through it and had some incredible moments during this season. And so I'm pretty excited for him to get a full healthy offseason.
Oh no.
Are we doing it again?
Seat at the table.
I'm excited for him to get a full healthy offseason, integrated in this Mavericks team, integrated in the playbook and all that stuff in the offseason. See what happens with him. He has next year and the year after that on his contract for the Mavericks. And so this is a piece for the Mavericks. He showed it in some big moments in the playoffs, and hopefully he's better coming into next year because he's one full year removed from his injury.
I will say he had 26 tonight. Dorian and Reggie combined for 19.
So that was your rule. They didn't follow your rule. Well, and Brunson, if we're going to talk about people that struggled in this game, Brunson did not have his best game.
Yeah, Brunson was minus 24 in the game. He had 10 points, didn't hit a 3 of 10 from the field. It wasn't a good game for him. I mean, him and Luka combined 3 of 15 from 3 tonight. They combined 13 of 38 from the field tonight. So you got to have more from the second option in a game like this. And obviously there's a lot of confidence. Mark Cuban, you quote tweeted it after the game. Mark Cuban talking to Mark Stein, Bally Sports, and just casually, in which, I mean, it's what we expect. Like, Dallas is going to have to pay Brunson no matter how you feel about, like, you can't let an asset leave. And if he does leave for nothing, it's not like you have cap space to just go sign other people.
No.
So you have to sign him for whatever money he wants to come back to Dallas. So, and that's how Mark Cuban and them are already acting. He's like, hey, after we re-sign JB, and then he just continues on his sentence. So I think there's a lot of positive momentum, going towards that. So.
Yeah, so Mark Stein asked him, what's next for the Mavericks? What are you looking at in the offseason? And Cuban just said very casually, after we sign JB, we're going to focus on all these players. And then Mark Stein followed up and said, hey, I think you just answered one of the biggest questions Mavs fans have for this offseason. What's the deal with Jalen Brunson? And Mark Cuban said, we can pay him more than anybody. And I think he wants to stay. And that's what's most important, is that he wants to stay, wants to be part of this group. The chemistry, being coached by Jason Kidd, it's just been an incredible experience for him. Now I'm not quoting him anymore, by the way. But the fact that he said that we can pay him more than anybody is a good sign for the Mavericks, and it's a good sign to bring him back. And he had an incredible step up in the playoffs. Like, let's not take one game or so and say, well, Jalen Brunson, can he be that second guy next to Luka? He has been. 21.5 points a game in the playoffs, 46% from the field, 35% from three, went to the free throw line 5 times a game, 4 assists, and only turned the ball over 1 time a game in this playoff run in the 18 games that he played. Like, honestly, what are you getting from another player? Like, are you getting 25 points a game, 27 points a game from another player that is like an all-star type player? He put up production that you would want in that second player next to Luka. The Mavericks have to shore up in other ways for sure, but incredible run from Jalen Brunson, and hopefully he takes this momentum into the next season.
Yeah, I mean, just, as a season as a whole, he jumped from 12 points a game up to 16. He upped his assist. Obviously he became a full-time starter.
Hold on, can we stop with he took his scoring average from last season in the regular season from 12 points a game to this season in the regular season to 16 points a game to the playoffs to 21 points a game. Where were we last year? Isaac, where were we at Media Day when we were talking to Jalen Brunson?
Oh, did y'all know that we talked to Jalen Brunson? There's a video on our YouTube channel.
But seriously, though, one of the big questions going into the season was, okay, Jalen Brunson can take a step forward, but can he play in the playoffs? And here we are, 3 rounds later against 3 tough teams, and he held his own the whole way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He definitely showed that he can play in the playoffs now. And, we have plenty of pods, to talk about how they can upgrade this roster. And, we do free agent profiles. We do draft stuff. For us, a lot of, the next chapter will be for the draft and stuff. We'll get into some draft stuff next week, but we'll also look at this roster. Like, who are some guys that might not be back? Who are some guys that are actually free agents? We have the Tim Hardaway, junior situation that he's been out for most of the year, and he'll be looking like fully healthy, ready for next season and all of that, under contract and stuff, and his new deal. So there's still questions around this roster, even though they're not walking into the offseason with this ton of cap space. Dallas is going to be pretty active of, hey, we got to upgrade some different areas here.
And Mark Cuban also said, that quote after signing JB, we're going to blah, blah, blah. He said, we can focus more in on the J-Kid type of player. Guys that can guard multiple positions. They're physical. They have a motor, able to play that J-Kid style of basketball. That's a quote I think we're going to think about a lot and talk about. We'll probably do a whole podcast on that. Like, who are the players out there that we think are that quote-unquote J-Kid style of player that now Mark Cuban has coined? And I'm interested to see which players on the Mavericks team qualify for that. I think I can imagine which players on the Mavericks team qualify for that, but it'll be interesting to see if Tim Hardaway Jr. qualifies for that, Dwight Powell qualifies for that. There's all kinds of different things we can look at in the offseason. But how are you going to remember this season? What's the thing you're going to look back on and remember this Mavericks team, and especially this playoff run?
I think as a whole, just this team making to a conference finals is huge. I was just looking more about Luka's career and stuff tonight, and it's just wild. Everything, we did a whole basically Luka pod, yesterday, but just everything that he's accomplished in these first 4 years of the 3-time first team All-NBA, 3-time All-Star, 3 playoff appearances. Now he has a Western Conference Finals under his belt, and
Crazy.
not even we didn't even talk about on yesterday's pod the off the court stuff. Like, he's already signed a $200 million extension. He already has a signature shoe with Jordan Brand. Like, this is all within the first 4 seasons, which is just unbelievable. It's insane to think about. But I think as a whole for this team, it's just, hey, this team made it to the conference finals. Like, this is the most successful, most fun season since 2011. So, like, over 10 years for fans to look back on. Like, this is literally a season. We're talking about a franchise that's won 1 NBA title. So when you think about these, deep playoff runs that live in this like lore of history of Mavs, and it's like, oh, remember that year? And it's like, this is going to be one of them. Remember 2022? Like, man, we beat Utah. We kind of detonated Utah's team, maybe. And then, I think obviously the series that we'll all remember, and even Jason Kidd and some of them talking about it post-game tonight, is that Phoenix series of, that's where they like really learned. Mark Cuban talking about it, Mark Stein, like, it's that Phoenix series that I think the most growth happened. That these guys were in the trenches against the, quote, best team in the league, 64-win Suns team, that were literally laughing at them and mocking them after being up 2-0. And you come away from that series and you go into their place in Phoenix in Game 7 and you beat them like you do. Like, that is a moment that is forever etched in this whole organization, this whole team's like minds and memories forever of how they fought in those trenches and they won that. Like, that's what I'll remember this season about. I'll remember that Suns series for as long as I cover the Mavs and think about the NBA. I will remember that Mavs Suns series.
Intern, did you turn the camera on for that one? Because, Isaac Harris preaching.
Sorry, did I?
Preaching on this one. No, it was great. The Luka special. Like, I'm going to remember that Luka special moment with Devin Booker on the ground, like looking up at that fan and saying, oh, I just did the Luka special. And then them like not winning that series, that Suns team having that just such confidence going into that series and then not winning. And then the Mavericks just destroying them in that Game 7. And seeing this Mavericks team come up with their identity. I mean, the Mavericks run from January till now has been insane to watch. Insane to watch how different they are. The trade that they made, the Porzingis trade, and then having their identity, sticking with it. And like, if the Mavericks don't make that trade and they don't change the way that they're playing, is Mark Cuban still saying like, oh, we got to figure out what a J-Kid type of player is? Like, I don't know if he's still saying that because this team didn't have that type of identity before that trade. But now they do have that. They doubled down on it and it worked out super well for them. And it's going to be really interesting to see what Nico Harrison and the front office does with all this. I mean, Michael Finley was at the combine. Like, they have guys out there like working on the offseason stuff already. Working on the draft stuff.
Scouting players, down the street.
Players. Dirk was out there in Golden State, like scouting Chet. He was sitting there talking to Chet while Mark Cuban was talking to him.
I don't know about scouting him, but
I mean, he was sizing him up. He was sizing him up out there. But yeah, that shift, and now we know the Mavericks' identity, and now they can double down on it and know, okay, this is a type of team that can win around Luka and beat some of the best teams in the NBA. They beat the Phoenix Suns in a 7-game series. They, were tough against the Warriors in a couple games. Like, if that Game 2 game goes a little bit different, one quarter goes different, and the Mavericks, obviously won Game 4, but yeah,
and they can't get complacent now though. And I don't think they will, but I say that because...
How many people said that afterwards? Like, this Mavericks team can't expect to be here next year. Like, I felt like Stan Van Gundy and so many people were saying that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of proof to that, right? Like, we've seen what happened to the Hawks this season. They make
Blazers.
This like... Yeah, in the Blazers, we see these teams that kind of, if you want to say come out of nowhere, and have an upset and beat a Suns team and stuff, and then they make it to the conference finals, and then it's like, well, dang it, now it's been 3 or 4 years and we haven't been back type of thing. Yeah. So they can't just bank on it. The organization can't bank on it and say, we got Luka, we got an all-time great here, and then we're just we got this road back for the next years to come. You got to stay aggressive. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, like, they know this, but it's still that, you can't just expect to be back.
For sure. And we're going to talk all offseason about how they can make another step. This team and this front office knows they need to make another step and take another step forward because they have this window with Luka now. The window is open. How great is that?
From now, moving on, the Dallas Mavericks are title contenders. Like, you have to, because Luka is at that level. With that comes great expectations. With that comes great expectations, though. But when you have a top 5 player in the league in Luka Doncic and you take the step and you make a conference finals, the expectation now is hey, the expectation is to be back in the conference finals, in the finals from here on out. So the expectations have risen now. We're 4 years into this, and now it's going to make the fan base antsy. It's going to make, there's going to be more arguments. There's going to be everything when you fail, but this is part of it when you have a superstar and you've already made it to the conference finals.
Incredible. Again, thank you everybody for listening to the show, watching the show on YouTube, hanging out with us every single day, 5 days a week. You're part of the Raccoon Squad. If you listen 5 days a week, we appreciate everybody that does that. Yeah, thanks for joining us during this playoff run. Like we said, we're going to see if there's exit interviews, possibly Saturday or Friday, and we'll definitely have a podcast right after exit interviews. But we'll see what next week looks like, and we'll dive into offseason, we'll dive into draft, we'll dive into the free agency stuff. So stick with us. Subscribe if you're not. So go ahead and subscribe on the podcast or YouTube. Either way works for us. Thanks for making us your first listen. Now make your second listen. Locked On NBA. Our boy Tony East and Andy Kamenetsky are on talking about the Mavericks, probably talking about some Warriors, probably talking about some draft stuff. Great stuff on Locked On NBA on the YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcast. Guys, thanks so much for listening and hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs.
Peace out!
Let it ride! Boom!